I remember vividly, it was January 25th, 1987. We're in the Eastern Mediterranean, not particularly far off the coast of Syria. And it was our wave day. I wasn't even waving at night yet, but we were still flying A3 Whales. And it was the last recovery of the night.
Okay.
And the pilot of the A3 was really having trouble. And he could not get aboard. A couple of bolters, the CAG LSOs got involved, started waving him. They sent him up to tank.
And my having ground, X-ray 1, ready to check, 1, 2.
Welcome to the Naval Aviation Ready Room podcast, where the stories, leadership, and leading-edge technology of naval aviation come alive. Hosted by retired Navy Captain Ryan Keyes, this podcast takes you beyond mere museum artifacts as he delves into the personal stories, pivotal decisions, and state-of-the-art hardware that define the world's most prolific aviation force.
On today's episode, takes us into the cockpit of leadership, history, and innovation, where we'll learn from one of the most respected leaders in naval aviation. Joining us in the radio room is Captain Sterling Gilliam, a retired naval aviator with more than 30 years of service and a wealth of leadership experience. As the director of the National Naval Aviation Museum, Captain Gilliam now oversees the preservation of one of the world's largest aviation legacies. A veteran of hundreds of missions and more than 4,600 flight hours, Captain Gilliam has led naval squadrons, commanded Carrier Air Wing 9, and served as an instructor at the highest levels of naval aviation training. Today, he brings his unique perspective on leadership, history, and aviation to the podcast. And before I let him chime in, I've actually known Sterls for quite some time. We first met when he was the CO or XO, one of the other VAQ 141 in CAG 8. Back in the 1998 to 2002 timeframe. I happened to be in HS3 at the time in my first squadron, while Sterls here was in his 05 command at the time. So great. And then we got reunited back here at my arrival at the foundation and at the museum in the cradle of naval aviation. So Captain Gilliam, Sterls, welcome to the Ready Room.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Really, really excited about the Naval Aviation Ready Room podcast. I think it's a great initiative and appreciate you hosting me today.
Great. I think to have you as one of the first people on the podcast, I think is outstanding because as the director of the museum here, I mean, you are setting the standard, I believe, in museum history. And visitor experience. And really, what I see is when we have our ensigns and our second lieutenants who are here waiting to start knife, they are seeing the multiple generations of the history of naval aviation, which is awesome. And that is under all your responsibility here. So,
it's just good to be back in the family business, albeit in a DIFT-in status, non-flying status, for those of you not familiar with the DIFT-in term. But it's a great opportunity. I've been granted a wonderful midlife gift to come back as a director here at the museum.
That's great. So let's go back into your history a little bit and talk about your career. So honestly, go from the beginning. If you want to go back to where you were born and raised,
literally
college, the best, and now.
The best chance encounter I ever had. I was actually studying to be an accountant, a CPA at East Carolina University. Go Pirates!
Yeah, right.
And I'm wandering through the student union the fall semester of my sophomore year in between economics classes.
Okay.
And the Navy recruiters encamped there, like they're encamped in every student union across the country. And they were playing a video of airplanes coming and going off aircraft carriers. There's an old Grumman promotional called Sea Legs. Some of you may remember it on the podcast.
Sea Legs.
And I was young enough and naive enough and beguiled enough by the video to stop and talk. I had one interview in college, and that was with the U.S. Navy.
Okay.
I graduated with a GPA we will not discuss on this podcast. And I jumped in my 1982 Pontiac Sunbird and drove to Pensacola and went to Aviation Officer Candidate School right here in Pensacola.
What year was that when you graduated AOCS?
83. I got commissioned in 83.
Okay. When Top Gun had not been released yet.
Had not been released. Officer and a Gentleman had just come out. Which kind of, so AOCS, and you're a Naval Academy grad. I wasn't smart enough to get into the Naval Academy. Never tried for that matter.
It took me 2 times. Yep.
Yeah, it details that cheesy Richard Gere movie, but I can here to say that AOCS, The drill instructors are much meaner than Lou Gossett Jr. And there's
Meaner than that?
yeah, and you didn't have a Deborah Winger to chase around Pensacola, so it was good, but a great experience. And went to flight school up the street at Whiting. Was fortunate enough to select for jets.
Okay.
Went to Beeville, Texas, now a Texas State Prison, thanks to base realignment and closure commission.
Beeville's no longer there, right?
No longer there, but got my wings. And embarked on a wonderful 30-year career, embarrassment of riches, of opportunity to fly airplanes for the balance of that time, and really, really fortunate to have had that chance encounter with, I was a late bloomer. I mean, I was a late, when I tell people I joined the Navy under police escort, it's kind of a little throwaway line. But like any good throwaway line, there's some truth to it. And I was just a little bit of a late bloomer. The Navy gave me some purpose, and I worked hard to go to ASCS because I didn't want to come home, tail between the leg to Henderson, North Carolina. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. Okay. And stunningly, 22 years into my life, results followed. And I go, geez, this would have been a lot easier had I maybe done this at maybe 12 or earlier. But I learned an early lesson in the Navy that hard work pays off.
Sure. And
preparation pays off. And I tried to do that the rest of my 30 years in uniform. It's great. Very fortunate.
Yeah, I believe that one of my best traits, not my best traits, but the best trait that a leader could have is setting the example. Did you see that a lot when you were a JO? Did you have good examples? I had some bad examples as well.
But I was, through 6 pay grades, I was the benefactor of exquisite mentorship. Just everywhere along the way, people were kind enough to reach out to a Lieutenant J.G. Gilliam, a Lieutenant Gilliam, a Lieutenant Commander Gilliam, and give me advice, give me some counsel when I probably needed that counsel. And since then, I've certainly tried to reciprocate that. Exactly. And that's one of the things I take great pride in is trying to be a good mentor.
Okay. Yep. I believe the same thing. I think I try to reach out to, JOs, or actually maybe they were JOs, now they're going to be, COs themselves now, and offer that mentorship to them, because I think after all the experiences that you've had, you do have something to offer them, right? I mean, it is wisdom, it's sage experience, it is a real world, like I said, experiences that you can now impress upon them.
Well, one of the joys of this job is you and I get an opportunity to rub elbows with the young men and women that have decided to make naval aviation a career. And they're freshly out of the Naval Academy or ROTC or OCS. Right. And they're really, really excited to be here. And they're a tremendously talented, dedicated bunch. And that's been the thing that I've most appreciated, is anyone that bemoans the decline of American youth hasn't spent a lot of time with these young men and women. And you and I get an opportunity to mentor them in this role, give them a peek under the hood of the vocation that they're not going to join, that they're already part of.
Yeah. I know I've heard you say that term before, the family business. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of like that. But your son has joined the family business, correct?
He is he just put on lieutenant, and massive failure of parenting. He's a 21 grad of Vanderbilt University, ROTC, Commodores, but he decided he was going to go the submarine route, and I'm tremendously proud of him. I get
I'm sorry. I got it. He joined the family business.
Yeah, I get a lot of grief for letting him go subs, but you talk about people that are on the front line, certainly in a Los Angeles class attack sub.
100%.
And so very proud of him, and it's good. And, the family business isn't necessarily genetic. I mean, this family's knitted together not by biology or genetics, but by shared sacrifice, common purpose, and like ideals. And that's the real joy of it.
Yeah, I agree. So your career spans over 3 decades, held leadership roles, like I said, 05 commanded the FRS and what we call bonus command sometimes, and then CAG of CAG 9. Can you give me maybe a C story from each one of those different times when you were in a leadership role that kind of molded you who you are today, or something, like I said, for someone who's listening,
we'll talk
who could talk about that?
Foundationally, one of the things that really helped me early. I grew up in the VAQ community, A6B Prowlers. So it was a pretty small community, single-sided at Whidbey Island. So I made a decision early on to go be a landing signal officer, and that really allowed me to get out of my ready room and meet the other men and women of the air wing. And it also gave me leadership opportunities very early. So I think that helped. But back to the command tours, we were on Enterprise, CAG 8. Pretty interesting. We had a phenomenal deployment going. We set sail in the spring of 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Did the Northern Atlantic for some NATO operations, low levels over Scotland, into the Mediterranean for some pretty tasty med ports.
It wasn't bad.
Went through the Suez Canal and in Straits Hormuz, conducted then Operation Southern Watch, enforcing the no-fly zone of Iraq. You'll remember our last day of operations in Southern Iraq was the 9th day of September. The 10th, we spent transiting the Straits of Hormuz outbound. And on the afternoon of the 11th of September, 2001, we were steaming best speed for our last port visit, Cape Town, South Africa.
That's right.
When everybody in Air Wing 8 and everybody on Enterprise watched 9/11 unfold. It was late in the afternoon for us, but we knew our deployment had changed. So had an AOM later that afternoon and said, "Hey folks, cruise just started over. I don't know when we're going to go home. And I can't predict." And frankly, it doesn't matter. We're exactly where we need to be. And that's another story that you and I are able to talk about, naval aviation and presence. By nightfall, we were off the Pakistani coast.
That's right.
Our relief that was going to conduct a Southern Watch mission, Carl Vinson and her Air Wing 11, they're right beside us. So by nightfall, 9/11, you had not one but two nuclear aircraft carriers in their associate air wing ready to deliver combat power projection to our adversaries.
Yeah, that's right. And we hung out there for another 3 weeks, and then OEF started on
7 October.
7 October, yeah. I remember actually going out on the flight deck because we weren't flying that night.
Right.
And I remember actually watching the Tomahawk missiles launch from the destroyers that were in the strike group around us. And you can go back down into the ready room and actually watch it on television. It was pretty wild.
It was pretty surreal. And I'll go back to even just later in the day on 9/11, because with satellite TV, we were able to see everything. And having already been stationed at the Pentagon, I knew where that missile, and I had orders back to the Pentagon. I was fairly late in my career. My family's back in Washington State. My son and daughter, not even 3 years old yet. And I had this really weird range of emotions. You and I were on the safest place on the planet.
Pretty much.
A U.S. warship 200 miles in the Northern Arabian Sea. And our country had been attacked. And, airlines had shut down. And that was just so weird because we were exactly where we needed to be. But our family had so much doubt, so much insecurity. And we just didn't know. It was really a range of emotions that I won't forget for a long time.
For sure. I like how you said when you did the AOM, how you said
cruise just started over.
Yeah, it's a reset.
Yeah. And for your listeners, we were 5 months into what was planned to be a 6-month cruise.
Yeah.
And we ended up staying for another, month and a half, 2 months or so.
Yeah. But you're right. And I remember, like you said, the same feeling. We're kind of out there doing our job. This is what we're supposed to be doing. This is what we have been training for really our whole lives up until then. And then you come home from that and you hear about how everyone back here was affected. But we were so detached from that. I didn't understand that things were shut down or you couldn't get somewhere or you were supposed to fly somewhere the next day and had a ticket and canceled now. But we were out there doing what we wanted to do.
And it was. So that was a fitting into a eventful deployment. And I'm glad we were where we were, and we were ready to do the bidding, and we did. We performed well. Air Wing 8 performed well. In those circumstances. You talked about the other command tours like you. I had the opportunity to command an FRS. I didn't, even though I had been through the FRS as a student and as an instructor, I really didn't have any full grasp of what a fleet replacement squadron charged with training all of those pilots and electronic countermeasure officers in that airplane. It was really a beast. I mean, it was 7-day-a-week operations, 24, 3-shift maintenance.
Right.
And the biggest lesson I learned out of that in a VAQ operational squadron, in my case, VAQ 141, is pretty small. And I had done most every job that all my department heads done. So I knew what was going on. And I think the JOs would probably characterize Sterling Gilliam as a little bit of a micromanager. They can tell. And I realized as I got to an FRS, and certainly when I got to an air wing, it was too big of a beast. So I finally learned to let go. And instead of trying to do everything myself, to set the conditions for success of my subordinates, the department heads, the people below me, the officers, the senior enlisted, and just give them good guidance, a big guardrail on the left, big guardrail on the right, and just let them careen to victory. And then certainly with an air wing, just like you have in the type wing, that's such a big beast with so many moving parts that I really learned to trust my commanding officers and executive officers. And I really learned a valuable leadership lesson over those 3 command opportunities to be what I would hope is a better leader that was more focused on big picture than maybe I initially was as a brand new commanding officer in CAG 8.
I can definitely say that. I can't remember what flag officer said it, but always give yourself, some time to like sit quietly and think big thoughts. That is, in my opinion, something that always challenged me. Very difficult to do, especially at the 05 level. Well, I mean, you're a tactical leader at that time, but you're kind of employing the tactical level and trying to think at the strategic level. And as you get more senior, trying to do that. And that was always a challenge for me, even as you gained in experience and in your leadership roles. Still, though, it was always tough for me. When I go back to your FRS experience, the one thing that I thought that was great was you had the best of the best.
Literally.
At
I had
the FRS.
54 lieutenants working for me at any given time. And they were, at the time, I think there were 13 VAQ squadrons. And they all wanted to come to the FRS, and you couldn't take all of them. And you had to work hard to make sure that the ones you did have, that you looked out for their careers and took care of them. And as you saw, those young men and women went on to do great things. And many of them went on to command squadrons, air wings, and ships. It was kind of fun.
Yeah. I will take a little bit of satisfaction, having been there. I mean, you're only the FRS CO. I was only FRS for 15 months. Yeah. Sometimes
I would say
longer.
2 years.
Yeah, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But yeah, you hope to just be able to have a great impact upon them because they're already kind of on that, should I say, golden path. Having gone to the FRS, performed well as a JO, and now at the FRS, and you want to keep them, as long as they're worthy, keep them, moving in that path. But it really does take a CO, though, who really can recognize what true potential leadership is all about, and to make the investment in them, whether it's, fit reps, awards, exposure, qualifications, whatever it is, to, keep them going in their career progression.
100%. And it's such an intense environment. It's the whole production thing. I used to, it's Minnesota mining and manufacturing for naval aviators, because you've got raw materials, that being the young flight students, newly winged aviators. You've got your industrial plan, which are the airplanes, and it's just consumables, jet fuel. You learn a lot. And if you get behind, now it's tough.
It is.
It is very tough. And so I learned some lessons there, and I was very proud of what the squadron was able to accomplish. There were some bumps in the road.
Always.
I thought I'd been there 5 times as staff or student. So I thought I had the rag figured out until I come back. As I'd like to tell people, it's like being the principal of the high school that you graduated from. And being principal was not as easy as it might have seemed, but I learned a lot in the squadron. To this day, now flying the 18G Growlers, very, very proud of the work ethic that squadron exhibits, and the VAQ community in general, which could be characterized as a culture of success. And I'm very proud of what that community has accomplished. It's fairly new. I mean, EA6B only was put into service late at the Vietnam War, so 71, 72 time frame.
Is that right? Okay. And then, and how many, when did the whole Air Wing XPED thing happen?
Well, the Air Force.
I mean by expeditionary squadrons.
Correct. The Air Force used to have their own electronic warfare airplane in the form of the EF-111, which was an EA variant of the F-111 fighter bomber. I mean, Mach, supersonic.
Side by side.
They used a similar jamming system that we did. Well, the Air Force just got out of it. Well, the leadership of the Department of Defense says, hey, we need electronic warfare. And Desert Storm, reinforced that. So the Navy actually stood up 3, eventually 4 squadrons of expeditionary squadrons that did not deploy on aircraft carriers, but deployed in support of joint and coalition operations around the globe.
And I mean, you would always see it, right? I mean, I don't know if you saw it maybe as CAG, but I know when in my early on career was when you would go do OIF, a lot of time the carrier would roll into the Gulf and then poof, off go, the prowlers, into Al Asad or
we were very
somewhere.
fortunate, and because you don't want to relinquish your electronic warfare capability because they're there to support your air wing, those strike fighters, to do their mission. We were very fortunate when Air Wing 9 showed up in theater in 2007 in OEF, Afghanistan. My first flight into country was dragging an EA-6B to Bagram, and we swapped out some pods with the VAQ squadron that was stationed there. The fact that the VAQ-134 was already there allowed our prowlers to stay on board Stennis and support the airline in a variety of missions. So that was where the expeditionary thing, the Navy really, it was in their best interest to stand up those additional squadrons because otherwise the air wings were going to get, raided as soon as they ended up in theater. As much as the combatant commanders love their strike fighters, electronic, the whole electromagnetic spectrum is a big deal and getting bigger.
Yeah, no, I see that for sure from the outsider looking in. I do want to go back to what you said about being an LSO, and I kind of want you to dive into that a little bit and how that made you a better aviator, right?
Sure.
But also a better leader as well in your time in command.
Yeah, I'm sure most of your listeners are aware of what the landing signal officer does. It's essentially a carrier-qualified pilot that spends some of his or her time literally at the back of the ship guiding their fellow air wing pilots back aboard the ship. And even with the modern accoutrements of precision landing mode, PLM, known to many as magic carpet, there's still a requirement for the LSO to be there, not the least of which you're landing airplanes every 55 seconds.
Right.
So you've got to make sure the gear's set, the landing area is clear, it's set for the appropriate weight setting. But early on, we did not have PLM, and we were flying actually airplanes that could use the assistance. Single engine A7s, with not the greatest responsive engines, big, looks like a fighter, only bigger F-14s that also didn't have the greatest. So you got a chance to participate in more than a few landings, especially at night. And I quickly realized it was an opportunity for me to get better because I'm seeing the mistakes and there's things that I can bring into my own skill set when I'm sitting in the cockpit. But I also learned that you've got to be able to make critical decisions about, is this person in a safe position to land or not? And probably the crystallizing moment for me was on my very, very first deployment in 1987. I'm on Nimitz, again with CAG 8, and I'm with VAQ-138. And the wave teams are broken up. You typically, depending on how many you have, you'll divide up into either 4 or 5 teams. So if it's 4 teams, every 4th day, you just won't fly and you'll spend time on the LSO platform. And you'll spend some time learning how to wave your airplanes aboard, and then they'll let you wave some of the other type model series, and eventually you'll be waving all the airplanes day and night being demonstratively tougher. I remember vividly, it was January 25th, 1987. We're in the Eastern Mediterranean, not particularly far off the coast of Syria. And it was our wave day. I wasn't even waving at night yet, but we were still flying A3 Whales. And it was the last recovery of the night. And the pilot of the A3 was really having trouble, and he could not get aboard. A couple of bolters,
Mhm.
the CAG LSOs got involved, started waving him. They sent him up to tank because we were so far away from a divert that there
Blue
was
water
no,
ops.
we were
Mhm.
blue water ops after his first bolter. Sent him up to tank, and the tanker was sour.
Oh, no.
So he comes back down. It's the last launch of the day, last recovery. So there's no alert. This is well before the alert turning tanker. Came back, bolted one more time. They decided to rig the barricade, which ultimately ended up being a failed barricade where the airplane caught the upper loading strap with the nose gear, slammed it to the flight deck, broke into, skidded off the flight deck, went in the water, 7 people, never seen or heard from again, killed all 7 on board.
Oh my gosh.
It was it was one of these things where all the things that conspire, literally the dark and stormy night, January, Eastern Med, not particularly good conditions.
Mhm.
The tanker was sour.
Yeah.
The A6 tankers that normally support us, they had had a red stripe, so they weren't flying. So the tanker that was sour was an A7 tanker. They didn't have a spare. The decision of whether to bring him back aboard, and the LSOs did everything they possibly could to talk this A3 pilot into a safe landing and ultimately the barricade, but they weren't successful. And I go, okay, early on, this is a deadly serious business.
Yeah.
So from that point, I tried to be the very best landing signal officer I could, not only on the platform, but I wanted to be a subject matter expert in all things carrier aviation. I wanted to understand C-13, wet accumulator catapults, Mark 7, Mark 3 arresting gear,
The gear on the
Fresnel
ship.
lens, yes, the arresting gear, the catapults, the optical landing system, the effects of pitching deck, wind over the deck, all those things made me a subject matter expert in the LSO business, and I was able to do the LSO gig all the way. It really became my primary job as an air wing landing signal officer, and ultimately as the commander of Naval Air Force's Force LSO. And it gave me some leadership opportunities that I was still a lieutenant when I'm doing this, and I'm essentially working these large detachments and working very closely with air wing commanders, carrier COs. So I didn't plan it that way, but the LSO stuff made me a better leader, a better pilot, and I really think it was one of the catalysts early in my career.
Wow, that's actually pretty incredible. But I'm going to ask 2 cheeky things real quick.
Okay.
So the first one is, did you ever have to, obviously you had to debrief aviators who were senior to you.
Yes.
Can you can change the names to protect the innocent. Can you give me a situation where you did that to someone senior and they pushed back?
Oh, they pushed back
on
hard.
you.
And that happened pretty routinely.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And normally in that
being a helicopter guy, I would, obviously knew lots of LSOs and friends in the air wing, but I was not an LSO, so I never had to necessarily do that.
And it's funny, I've been on both sides of that because we're naval aviators, rotary wing, fixed wing, land-based, sea-based, we're just competitive people, period.
Yep, sure.
And I've been a little peeved at Paddles when I perceived that he didn't see the pass that I saw. And then conversely, when I'm there reading the pass to someone, and typically when we know we have someone that's a difficult debrief, and I guess I might have had one of those things as I got a little bit senior, but we would typically let the more senior LSO debrief it. And it's a good learning experience for them.
Oh, is that right? So even if you recorded the pass and called the pass, and had all the, I used to actually know all the crib sheets for you along in the groove,
short
and,
LSO shorthand,
all that stuff during
typically, if you waved if you were the controlling LSO, you would debrief it. But there are certain cases where the air wing commander or maybe a crusty skipper who might have had a reputation, the CAG LSO may take that debrief.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I like that. It's almost like LSO JOPA.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
It's a good group.
Yeah.
It's good. And it's all done it's all part of the process improvement. The competition is nice, but the reason all of those grades are recorded and kept and debriefed. It's this relentless pursuit of perfection. You could fly a really, really good 4.0 pass, but you made deviations. Those deviations are small, so it's all trend analysis. It's very akin to baseball, and I've always felt that carrier landings in baseball, a good carrier aviator knows what his new GPA is before he's finished the rollout and raised his hook. And it's very akin to a batting average. An at-bat is a pass. And how he handles that at-bat is those various shorthands.
Sure.
That's a little bit of a cheeky analogy to your cheeky question.
That's all right.
But,
I like it. Well, my other cheeky question was, how were you as a pilot when you would land? Always hard on yourself, I'm sure, right? I mean, we're the ones that are always the hardest.
I was hard on myself, but I learned a lot about anxiety control, mental toughness, and being aggressively smooth, because you're sitting there flying, man, you could squeeze the black out of the stick. Yeah. So, and when I got to be an instructor as a FRS landing signal officer, and you're taking people to the ship for the very first time at night, and they're nervous, and that's where I loved being an instructor. I got reasonably good at it, I think. But I enjoyed being able to teach people how to land aboard the aircraft carrier. And I would continually, to my very last carrier landing, the things that I would teach in a CQ lecture, when I was a lieutenant at VAQ 129, I would sit in a ready room chair like this and go through that very briefly before I manned up for my flight.
I like it. Mental
and I could occasionally be tough on the LSOs too. So that's kind of a give and take.
Sure. So let's transition now. Okay. So said very successful career. Like you did a stint in 98 as well, which is a track. Normally after that,
N98 is the resource sponsor for where you're essentially setting the requirements for your community. So as you get newer, better airplanes or equipment, they want the experts, they want the operators in those billets in the Pentagon in a non-flying status to be able to articulate, sometimes forcefully, why they are valid requirements. Because it's one DoD budget. Right. And everything's racked and stacked, fully funded Gerald Ford class, Romeos, Sierras, it's all coming out of one pot of money. So your requirement, you have to clearly articulate the requirement for what your warfighting community needs.
I know I was going to say no. So when you're the LSO, though, I used to distinctly remember, at least, when in my time in the air wing, was the Prowler was by far the hardest aircraft to land on the carrier.
Well, it was a little hard, and again, this is where
because of the responsiveness, right? Responsiveness of the controls. It's your vision, because of the high angle of attack as you're coming in, right?
Well, it's built on the same airframe as the A6. It's 5 feet longer and 4,000 pounds heavier than a straight A6 with the same wing structure. Now, the good thing is we had better motors than the A6 Intruder, the J52P408s, because they could really, but you're also lugging around, any number of jamming pods. To put it in parlance, strike fighters deliver their ordnance and come back slick wing, hopefully. We bring our ordnance to and from the ship.
Great point.
With the exception of maybe a Harm missile if you're fortunate enough to fire.
Yeah.
And the airplane had some funny handling characteristics compared to the A6 that when you're in the landing configuration, you had a little bit of light buffet, almost like stall buffet. That's why there was a stall warning one in the airplane. And it early on, it was a lot of people got hurt in that airplane around the ship, and it was fairly new. I mean, when I first flew the Prowler in 85, the same year I got my wings, the community had only been in existence for a little more than 10 years. And so they were still, but we worked hard, and I worked hard to be a good pilot, and I had some success at it.
Yeah.
And the most important thing, people will get wrapped around about carrier-arrested landings and catapult shots. Really, that's just the commute to work. The launch and the recovery, and we pride ourselves in those recoveries, but it's really what you're doing on the business end, in an operational setting.
Right.
So the more efficiently you can launch and recover, is the reason why LSOs focus on the faster we can get the airplanes airborne and safely back aboard to rearm, reload, rebrief, refuel, and go fly the next combat sortie with those same airplanes.
Got it. Well, like I said, transition. The other thing I'll say is one of my classmates and friends actually perished in a prowler mishap, Brendan Duffy. I think that was back in 1996, I believe.
Enterprise mishap?
Yep.
And that was another...
Landed on top of the S3.
That was another thing. God bless the LSOs. They lost track of where everybody was, and they landed on top of an S3.
Yeah, I know.
It was a tragic loss of life.
It was.
Yeah.
All right. So you retire, make the decision to retire from the Navy, and then how did you find your way down back to the cradle of naval aviation?
So I retired, and again, I talked about being an instructor and a teacher. I had the good fortune in my last tour to be the professor of naval science and commanding officer of the George Washington University ROTC unit. I'd been on a tour in the Pentagon before that, my third stint in the building, and I had the opportunity to go be the professor of naval science, and I really enjoyed it because I was able to take the last couple of years of my Navy career and apply what I had learned to young men and women that were just starting their Navy or Marine Corps career. It was very, very satisfying, and I keep in touch with my young midshipmen to this day.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
it's really,
that's awesome.
It's really good. And they're out doing great things in a variety of things, subs, surface, and certainly aviation. All good things must come to an end. I hit 30 in 2013. I went to work for the defense industry for a small beltway bandit, as the saying goes.
Okay.
Good W-2. Hated it. It was not particularly compelling work. It was work that it was in the electronic, attack world. So it was meaningful and it had value to my community, but it wasn't fulfilling. And a friend of mine who had been a department head for me called and says, he closed out of the Exeter base here in Pensacola. He said, Captain Rasmussen is retiring. You should think about coming down to Pensacola. I go, dude, I have no idea what an archivist does, and I can't spell curation, so that you got the wrong guy.
Can you spell museum?
He calls me back a year later, and he says, hey, Raz's job didn't get filled. You ought to think about taking. I go, no, I got filled. He goes, no, that deal fell through. So I swallowed hard, and I made the decision to apply for and ultimately got selected to be the 4th director of the National Naval Aviation Museum. And I came down here in 2015, and I had some trepidation about it because 10 years into it, I'm still not quite sure what my archivist does. I think I understand my curator, but I couldn't do her job. And there are some really, really talented people. But I quickly realized, as I mentioned at the outset of the podcast, that I was back in the family business in a position, an impactful position to be. Naval aviation, it started in 1911, which is pretty remarkable in of itself.
It is.
Wright brothers flew in 03. Less than 8 years later, some clown's trying to figure out how to do it from a boat.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
It is.
But some museums have it easy. World War II Museum is the one I cite. Hey, it's gold standard museum.
It is very nice.
Starts at Pearl Harbor, ends at VJ Day. 3 years, 10 months, tell a story. How hard can that be? Our story is 114 years and going strong. And right now, Carl Vinson, soon to be Nimitz, which is steaming out towards the 5th Fleet AOR, they're all making history. And it's young men and women that were just here not long ago at the cradle of naval aviation, learning whether it's primary or even before that at schools command. So to have an opportunity to be the overseer of that and be involved in the family business and telling that remarkable 114-year story, availing ourselves of all the artifacts and archival material that exist at the 3rd largest aviation museum in the world. It's pretty cool. I'm very fortunate. I'm surrounded by a tremendously talented staff, supported by a wonderful foundation that you're the director of strategy for, and it's a great relationship. And it's kind of fun to watch where this museum has been and where it's going.
So, when I interact with you and I'm say with you on the museum floor and walking around, I feel like you have put in PhD level studying to this place sometimes. Like you do know a lot I know you've been here for 10
Right.
years, but I feel like you've been here for longer than that, maybe even 20 to 30, because I do feel like you can walk around and say, oh yeah, that's from this or that's from this. And I mean, there are so many artifacts, right? I don't know, 150 airplanes.
150 on the campus. And
Yeah.
I should have read the legal prose on this, but we're also the custodian for 948 airplanes across 50 states and 6 countries. The sun never sets on the National Naval Aviation Museum.
All over the world.
If you see an airplane on a stick, odds are it's the National Navy.
Yeah, that's correct. And you even have a person who manages all that. And when you borrow,
and a pretty small staff.
Yeah.
I've only got less than 30 folks that are paid employees. But again, kudos to the foundation for the tremendous support. Who literally fundraised for, planned, built, and gifted to the Navy the almost 400,000 square feet of enclosed exhibit space we have on this 60-acre campus.
Yeah. But did you? I mean, so before you interviewed to come down here, did you, I assume you did some prep and whatnot, but have you just picked up so much over the years? And this place just brings so many different people here as well.
It's funny you mentioned that because as I mentioned, I have no idea, archivist, curator, I got nothing. But I did run large, diverse organizations and programs, squadrons, air wings, and even
multi-billion-dollar programs.
Even the ROTC unit, which is an educational component. This museum was founded in 1963.
That's a good point.
As an educational entity, and it is to this day. My time in the ranch as a resource sponsor, because as many of your viewers know, this museum is owned by the Department of the Navy. Yeah. Two things I thought I'd never have
a lot
again.
of people don't know that.
Two things I thought I'd never have again: a CAC card and an NMCI email account.
That's right.
Right down
on the leash. Still
annual requirement for trafficking and human persons training. But understanding resources, and that's one of the things we've been very proud of. Realizing that of the $7 million dollars a year or so that it takes to run the museum year in and year out, about $5 million comes from the Department of the Navy. So as we go vie for those resources, we want to show warfighting benefit back to the Navy. It's great you put 700,000 people through the front door. What are we doing for the ensigns and second lieutenants here? And what are we doing for the almost 60,000 future petty officers and NCOs that are going through A school right here?
For sure.
So we've operationalized the museum to a great extent to focus not only the 600,000 civilians that come through the door, but through the aviators. And that's something we're very, very proud of. But I realized I actually had a pretty good foundational piece, certainly having an FRS, and I think you'd agree, running a public attraction and having an operational high op tempo is, you understand, my time in the Pentagon helped, my time as an LSO helped, and obviously time on aircraft carriers, which is the centerpiece of naval aviation. I had a good that was my home, that was my office for the balance of my adult life. So I found I actually was reasonably comfortable in the job. That said, I'll tell you what, it's the hardest job I've ever had. I've worked longer hours. I've had more stressful jobs, but this is easily the most complex job. And that's not a complaint.
No,
but it's a very nuanced. People go, well, you work for the foundation. Well, no, the foundation works for you. No, either. It's a very matrixed. And we have these wonderful volunteers that are tremendous, and overseeing them is a leadership challenge in itself.
For sure. It is the thing that I actually almost kind of think of it when I'm here at the museum as I feel like I'm almost back at my wing, right? In that there's so many things going on at one time, and you're spread, a mile wide and an inch deep everywhere, trying to hit everything. So I'll just give you an example of the things where you can walk around here one morning and you could see. So you could see a change of command for a flag officer. What's going to happen tomorrow? Actually, for NETC. I could go walk 100 yards around over to Cabot Flight Deck, and I can see a class of corpsmen. Corpsmen, right? Not ADs, ATs, corpsmen who are going to be SAR medical technicians. And they're graduating inside this place. Then you can walk around and you can then see a family that is spending their hard-earned money to come down to the beaches of Florida or Alabama for a week, and they take the time to come in here to be able to see, your artifacts. And then you could go upstairs, and then there's what we call flight adventure deck, which is an education program for local kids in Escambia and Santa Rosa County. And then you could go down to the QB Bar Cafe, which is, no kidding, a transplant from QB Point in the Philippines to here, and have lunch here. I'm trying to think of a word.
And then
maybe
you can wander
eclectic.
outside on Tuesday and Wednesday and go watch the Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron practice.
Exactly. So I listed 5 things right there.
That's a few
That
things.
probably only scratches the surface of the things that happen here.
I'm on record as saying this job fits my ADD personality to a T, because there's always something different going on. But it's wonderful, and people, the experience that our patrons have, they're very appreciative of it, and sometimes as you and I walk around, it's easy to forget that this is very, very unique to a lot of people. They've never seen anything like it. And we're very, very proud of it. And it takes an effort. I mentioned the civilian volunteers. We have about 260 of them.
Right.
When you aggregate their support hour for hour, it comes out to about 30, 35 full-time equivalent employees.
Wow.
That's more than I have for paid staff.
Right.
And then the young ensigns and second lieutenants that work for us as they wait to start their journey in flight school. At any given time, I'll have 20 to 30 of them, and that's another 20 to 30 full-time equivalent employees. So making sure those organizations row in the same direction, standardization. But it's a great feeling. So the family from Des Moines comes in and they see everything you just described,
right?
And they're just trying to get out of the sun, or it happened to be raining that day.
That's right.
And they wander into this National Naval Aviation Museum because they saw it on the billboard, or the person 2 motel doors down said, "Hey, you ought to try this out." It's fun.
Yes, like I said, it feels like I'm back. Like I said, the spinning plates.
That's good.
Right?
It's good.
Spinning plates. So I'm gonna try to pin you down here. Okay. So, and whoever's watching this, take no offense at his answers. Give me your top 3 exhibits or items here in the museum.
Well, I'm very proud of what we've done for, I'll call it the devotion exhibit, but it's our Korea exhibit that details the remarkable story of Ensign Jesse Brown and Lieutenant Junior Grade Thomas Hudner. Korea is often characterized as the forgotten war.
It is.
To an extent, in this museum, it was kind of the forgotten exhibit. Many of your listeners have read the book Devotion, or maybe even seen the movie.
Yeah.
When that book was written and it told that remarkable story, and we had the opportunity with literally the prop from the movie to turn that into an exhibit detailing that remarkable time in naval aviation. I'm very, very proud of that. So that's a favorite exhibit. And the fact that it was done in-house by our staff.
It was,
as most of the exhibits are. The aircraft that you see restored, or the exhibits, 99% of them are done by our skilled artisans. So that's good. Certainly the Blue Angel practices are unique. You don't get many competitive advantages in the museum world. The Smithsonian's larger than us. The Air Force has got a little museum up at Wright Pat in Dayton. They don't have Blue Angels flying twice a week for 6 months out of the year. As I like to say, it's like hosting a college football game twice a week for 6 months out of the year. Today was a practice, and we had 2,900 people on the flight line.
And it was poor weather even beforehand that probably deterred maybe even another 1,000 before that. So in terms of exhibits, certainly the Devotion exhibit and the Hudner Brown exhibit, it's not on display, but it was something that I get great joy on. As luck would have it, one of the airplanes that we had here, it's since been scrapped, but it was an EA-6B, and it was used as a firefighting trainer. It was really getting beyond its service life. But I
turns out bureau number wise, bureau number, serial number wise, 158029, I had like 40 flights in it. It was
No
with me
kidding.
in my first cruise.
Yeah.
Well, my maintenance department head comes up after they scrapped it, and he's got the refueling probe over his shoulder.
Right.
And it
Right.
sits in my office today.
Yes, it
The only
does.
thing left out of 158029.
Is that actually an official piece in the collection?
Yeah,
or
it is.
unofficial?
It's an
Okay.
artifact. So
Oh, okay.
it's cataloged. It's good. It's not going home with me.
Oh, man.
It's in my office.
It's not going to be on eBay.
No, it's not
Okay.
going to be on eBay. So it's in the office, and it'll stay.
Yeah.
It'll stay with the museum when I leave, which
Okay.
not anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So got it. No, I appreciate all those. Anyone can come here and has a certain niche,
Right.
of naval aviation that they like,
Right.
right? Whether it's Korean War or it's Vietnam, or it could be helicopters or whatever it is, or POW experience, Medal of Honor winners. Again,
And you have the
Yeah.
opportunity to utilize our research library. And I'll brag on our
Oh,
volunteers
great point.
whenever there's a need or a hole or a vacuum or a want that the museum's unable to fill, the volunteers will inevitably step up. And the amount of talent, not just in labor hours, but the amount of talent that exists is pretty impressive. As an example, we have a lady that volunteers once a week in the museum. As she followed her own husband around his Navy career, she was a professional archivist. She was the
really.
archivist for the Central Intelligence Agency for a period of time as a GS-15.
No kidding.
Retired in Pensacola, and you get that level of expertise to work in your library. That's pretty good stuff.
Wow. I need to meet her. I bet she has some
Yeah.
maybe
Lynn Tobin,
interesting
wonderful
stories.
lady.
Yeah. I was impressed when I first met, as they say, Delta Debbie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she's again one of the other volunteers here. She told me that she was the 7th most senior flight attendant for Delta Airlines and flew with them for 50 years.
50.
Wow.
Yeah, wonderful. And they love this museum, and they love the product, and they work so hard at making it such a superlative experience, and that's something we're very, very proud of.
Yeah. And it's your personal connections though go a long way as well. So I'll harken back to World Series Game 4. Right
Yeah.
here last year, where the museum hosted Tony La Russa.
That was pretty cool.
The World Series,
Yeah.
champion coach, to come here and do the play-by-play for Game 4 of
Right.
the World Series. And it's funny because when I grew up, I was a huge Oakland A's fan. When he was the manager of the A's for the Bash Brothers, when they won the World Series in
Right.
89,
Yep.
89 against the Giants, and the next day I got to actually meet him in person. And he actually let me hold his World Series ring from the A's championship and got a picture
That's
with it.
very cool.
Yeah, and I sent
Yeah.
it to my brother and all my friends and everything. Say, hey, look what I got to do. I mean, who would have thought you could do that in the National Naval Aviation Museum?
Well, the Blue Angel Atrium is the
So-
number one event site in.
Yeah,
And the other exhibit I'm very proud of is we repurposed a few years ago 8,500 square feet of flooring at the entrance to the museum to a 1/5 scale replica of the USS Nimitz flight
Right.
deck. And that was done with the strategic intent. And I talked a little bit about the World War II Museum. How do you tell an enduring story first person? Well, Nimitz sadly just got underway on her last deployment.
that's right.
But the last in that class, the USS George Herbert Walker Bush, CVN 77, was only commissioned in 2009. So for the next 35 years, men and women will be flying off that flight deck, and we'll be able to tell that our successor will be able to tell that story standing there at the entrance to the museum.
Yeah, that is pretty great. Pretty great. So, what do you see then now as the future for us here at the museum? Transition of any kind, like I said, the 21st century of naval aviation, expansion.
Well,
what
all of those
do you
things are
see?
at play, and it's a wide variety of things. From an organizing principle, I talked about naval aviation starting in 1911. We celebrated our centennial in 2011. So I use as an organizing principle, both thematically and from a planning point of view, the second century of naval aviation.
Okay.
We're into the second decade of the second century
Okay.
of naval aviation. And that allows us to plan out into the future what the museum might look like. But one of the things I learned in the Pentagon, that vision without a funding is hallucination.
Yeah. Hope.
So as we start trying to figure out what that might look like, and we certainly have aspirations to bring in other type model series. We don't have a Super Hornet. We don't have a JSF. We do have lines on both those airplanes.
Okay.
How do you display it, and how do you take care of it? The curators of the world say it's irresponsible to take something in the collection if you don't have a plan by which to maintain it. So we'll look along in concert with the Naval Aviation Museum Foundation. We'll start looking about what the second century of naval aviation will look like here at this museum, and I'm excited about it. And we'll come up. There are a lot of talented people in all those organizations and the stakeholders. We'll come up a way to talk about this remarkable 114-year journey going forward.
It is pretty fantastic. It is such a truly a small community,
Right.
Small world.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to speak at a winging up at Trade Wing 5. So Training Air Wing 5 is up at Whiting Field.
Yeah.
Has the 3 helicopter advanced training squadrons that are up there. I gave a speech to the winging class that was up there, and my theme was your winging number, your naval aviator number.
Oh, wow.
Naval aviator number. Okay. And I don't know about you, but so when we got in the HTs, it's a thing in the HTs.
Yeah.
Where you get a
By the way,
Stein.
the Hilo community, you guys do wingings much, but
Yeah.
the carrier guys, the tailload peeps need to take
Yeah.
a thing from you.
Yeah.
Your wingings are much more dynamic
Oh, wow.
and much more impactful than what I experienced in Beeville, Texas, and frankly, what we do. So
Wow.
kudos to the Rotor Wing brothers and sisters
Thanks.
for bringing some
Yeah.
pizzazz.
Yeah. Thanks. We just like to hear the sound of rotor blades
Yes,
whopping along. But my number, which the only reason why I knew it was because it's on a beer stein that you get at your winging ceremony. And I didn't really think about it. I'll be honest with you, probably 25 years of my career until later on. Then I saw it one day and I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty nice. That's a cool number, I guess. And it's 24,417. And I got winged in October of 1997. So now I'm speaking to student naval aviators who are now going to get winged,
Right.
Just in March of this year. And they were number roughly 35,000.
Yeah.
35,000. So, like you said,
10,000 naval aviators.
I mean, but from 1911, who we number all the way back,
Right.
to Eugene Ely, right, who I believe was number 1, all the way till now, 35,000 naval aviators.
Yeah. And that's one that someone asked me what that number is. And I'm not sure we have an accurate count, because I think it might be more.
You think so?
I think that might be the rotary wing. But you know what?
No, that's everybody.
Okay.
That's everybody. Because guess who was there? Admiral DQ Quinn,
Okay.
former Sinatra.
Right.
We actually asked him. All those numbers are held by Sinatra.
Okay.
Yeah, and they follow when they have an
Well, you know
office
what?
down there.
That's
So
worth an
you could
exhibit
go-
in and of itself.
It could be. But you could probably get hold of Sinatra PAO, and they could probably find your
Yeah.
naval aviator number for you if you don't happen to know
Yeah,
it. So anyone can do that. Yeah.
It's cool.
But with that, like I said, it's a small world. It is actually truly a small community, if only 35,000 men and women who've actually been designated naval aviators, which includes, Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. Keeping that alive for them all the way back till then. And then, like you said, into the next second century of naval aviation is your responsibility, really to kind of to continue that that history, to keep it alive and to make sure that people don't lose sight of it. And then we stand on the shoulders of giants.
We really do. And that's the remarkable, the airplanes are great, but the stories that people that have been part of naval aviation, titans, legends.
For sure.
And we're very fortunate to be part of that group.
Yeah. With that, I'll give any closing remarks over to you if you have anything else to add.
No, thank you very much. I love being in this family business. I'm very honored to have the current role, and I genuinely appreciate the support that the foundation provides. I'm very excited about this podcast. I think it's going to do great things, and
Hope
it's
so.
in the cradle of naval aviation.
I know.
What better place to talk about naval aviation than right here from your National Naval Aviation Museum? Thank you for putting it on and being such a gracious host.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on this flight through history and innovation here at the Ready Room. We hope today's episode inspired you with new insights and the incredible stories that make naval aviation so extraordinary. If you enjoyed the journey, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your network. It helps us reach more listeners like you. Don't forget to visit the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida, or explore our online resources at navalaviationmuseum.org to dive deeper into the stories we've shared. Follow us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and a sneak peek at upcoming episodes. Until next time, thanks for listening to Ready Room. See you on the next flight.